Did you know that all cactus fruit's edible, and there's a lot of different parts of cactus that you can eat that some people might not have known of? We're standing in front of the eaves pin, and it is actually edible. Beside us here, we've got the classic paddles that can be eaten of the opuntia, and it gets a yummy purple fruit on it that can also be eaten. And behind us, we've got cactus apples, and they get a big red apple-like fruit. But the eaves pin can actually be eaten. We can pull these parts off, and it's quite similar to a green bean. It's got a really yummy sweet with a tiny bit of a tart sour, and they're super crunchy and just super tasty. A lot of people didn't know those are edible. All right, let's jump into this. My name's Dave, and we're here at my cactus farm, and we're gonna check out some different Trichocereus. I primarily grow San Pedro Cactus, and today we're going to check out some cool different cultivars. We're going to dive into a couple of comments that people asked and just kind of check those out a little bit closer. Some people have asked about the long form, the Trichocereus bridgesii monstrous. So we're going to check out the long form a little bit closer. This is a big old stand of long form. And we can see this is a little bit dry and dehydrated by some of the wrinkles. The newer growth is definitely well hydrated and plump, and some of the base has sucked up a bit to give energy to those newer parts. And it is putting out some new spots out of these old growth. The old growth is, it's old, a little bit hurting. But the long form is different than the short form in that it grows long, crazy sections. Let's jump into this and check out some other cool stuff. We're actually gonna also give some shout outs. So keep your eyes peeled if you've given me some cacti. I got these little seedlings I just planted from Tossin' Dogs. And this is a really cool one that came all the way from Alaska. My buddy Wes just sent me these from Alaska. I plan on grafting them, but I personally like to graft when things are a little bit more hydrated. So we're gonna talk about grafting, check out Bruce's Dragon, and some long form. A lot to see in this video. And if there's anything that you want to see or ask about, just drop it in the comments. It does not have to be relevant to what we're talking about or checking out now, and I can always show it off on the next video, or definitely I'll answer every single comment question in this video's comment section. Got some neat flowers this morning. And someone had commented and wanted a progress report on this Reverted TBM long form. So I actually put a paper towel over it. There's a simple way of utilizing something as a shade cloth. And the pups have survived. They're not sunburnt and they're still growing. And this was a big tall cactus that fell over and broke. And it's going to survive. That base is going to survive. Here's another long form. So the long form pretty much only pups from the spines. And I have had people ask and comment, does it ever pop and come out of the top tip? And I just want to show, here is an example. This one burst open out of the tip with no spine, and it did grow another pup. So it is possible from them to grow from the tip a new pup. But it is also possible for the top tip to produce some spines. So, and we'll give a shout out to Cactus Affinity, because he's the one I got this reverted long form from. And we'll give a shout out to the Paula Band of Mission Indians, because that's who I got this cutting of Koopa from. I'm really stoked on that. I had waited years for it, and it was kind of tricky to communicate and talk with someone that would give me a cutting of this off of one of the original stands growing on the property that they now own. Pretty cool. All right, I also wanted to talk a little bit about grafting because we had a lot of questions on grafting. So we're just going to talk about a couple different types of grafts. So what we're looking at here is a slab graft. So way down at the base of this cactus is a slab grafted onto here. So a slab is a slabbed out section of a cacti grafted on there, and it has pupped and grown this nice fat piece. This is actually called swamp thing because the area that it was cut from is totally like a swamp. I love this one because of the multicolored spines. It seems to be similar to Cuscoensis or possibly a Peruvianus, but I just love how each spine has a different color. Gold, orange, red, black, and even the spines themselves have a lot of different coloration. So a standard puck graft would be a slice of a cactus in the shape of a hockey puck somewhat. And this is considered a sandwich graft. And this here is also a sandwich graft. And we can see those sandwich grafts have produced pups. So it's sandwiched in between a tip and the rootstock base. And if we took a puck and we cut it in half and put it sideways, that would be a slab graft. And a tip graft would just be a cutting off of the tip. And over here I do have a cool little TBM graft. And it's a great example to show how small of a piece is necessary to graft from. So this was just half a puck under there, and it has created that. Another cool thing that I do with some of my TBM, you might notice, you can see these, how I've cut the tip off, and I cut the tip with a few areolae, and so they were able to be grafted. And the base that stayed on there has been able to pup because it had a few. So it was a good way to cut some segments in half. There's another one here. So the base has been able to produce new pups. And the top tip that I cut and grafted has also produced pups. And we'll check those out. Here's some cool different spiral cactus. So we've got some different types. This is a looser form. So this is a clone that you'll see a lot of people growing. And I've had some people ask, hey Dave, why is my spiral cactus not as tight as your spiral cactus or as someone else's? And that's probably because you might have this looser clone. And a lot of different spiral cacti are actually seed grown. So the ones we're looking at over here, these are actually seed grown. And the way that we can tell that these are seed grown is if we look down at the base, we can see that they started as just a square and they weren't spiraling at all. And with a lot of seed grown Circes, they start as just this square, and they get to about 6 inches before they begin actually spiraling out. And here's some other long form, and those are next to the short form. So long form is also known as type A, and short form is known as type B. And those are just simple ways to classify the two, to easily know the difference between the two, since they're both monstrosities. So here we've got a short form in a pot next to a long form in the ground. And this long form often does put out spines from the top tip. And once they put out a spine from the top tip, then they can pup from the top tip. And then that pup can pup, and then it can slowly get taller. So a lot of times, if the long form, like this one over here, if it doesn't produce spines from the top, it's hard for it to get any taller. So whenever I do get a long form section that produces a spike or a spine from higher up, I make sure not to cut and remove this, because I want that to have the ability to pup and create a longer, taller stand. And what can happen, whoa, I'm stepping on a fallen piece of cacti, just as I was about to talk about fallen pieces of cacti, is those can get tall and heavy and they can lean and fall and break off. So this one here leaned and fell and broke off. And what I decided to do was I grafted a little TBM cristata on top of it. And someone asked like for a progress report on how this was doing, and it stuck on there really good. And this graft is growing some cool little spines and spikes, and it's getting a fan shape to it there, and it's doing great. So thanks for asking and checking in on that, and I'll keep trying to show progress reports of how these TBM cristatas do grafted onto this long form. You can see this is super long and tall, and it's continuing to grow taller, but they can just get too long and too tall and too heavy and lean and fall and break. And here we've got the SS03. I just love the notches on that guy. And then let's give a couple more shout outs. Here's some cool ones that I got from Mr. Yan. Now he sent me these, and I do plan on grafting them. We'll see this one in particular because it's the closest. This is SSO2 times Baker. So I was talking about some SSO2 crosses, and he said, I've got a cool one, I'll send it to you. A lot of people ask, where the heck do I get all of these cactus? Well, I make friends on Reddit or on Instagram, or, you know, through different social medias. And then the friends that I make, I'll buy cactus from them or trade with them. And then this piece that I got, you know, it's a little bit dehydrated. So I've got it planted here in a well-draining mix. So you can see it holds no water, even though the soil is a little bit moist. And I'm hydrating this and getting it nice and moist and supple before I cut it up and graft it. But the goal is to cut that up and graft it. Here's a cool, different looking piece. This is the Trichocereus tachiarensis, but for some reason it's just kind of growing inermis, which means it has no spines. So here's a regular one. So normally they grow really spiny and spiky with thick, big spines. Like we can see, this is done at the base. But the top is growing quite spineless right now, and quite a few ribs and differentness to it. We can only hope it crests or does something neat. It's always fun to keep our eye on cacti and see what the heck they do. We've got choices on if we keep going down the stairs or if we head down this aisle here. And here's the Pulaski chickpea. Someone asked if I use this for a rootstock, that they use it for a rootstock. I don't use it for a rootstock. We can see this pups a lot and it just branches a lot for me. So I try not to use cacti that branches a lot for a rootstock. Here's a Myrtillo cactus. This has just been a strange one. I received it as a variegated one, real small. It's never like actually variegated for me. It just seems to just, I don't know, it puts out streaks of yellow and then streaks of green, and it just never does it for me. But anyhow, it branches quite a bit, and that's one of the reasons I don't use it for a rootstock, is because of the branching. Here's Walt's dragon. Some people have asked to see some dragons, and it is a little bit trickier one. I have got some rain just a little bit in dew recently. You can see it's got a couple of spots there. It's just a little bit trickier for cacti to grow. Some things don't grow quite as happy as others do. And here's another cool one. This is a seed-grown cross. And here we've got some TBM. And here's something I wanted to talk about. So these are TBM short form. Now, the short form can put out longer segments. You can see this segment here is about 8 inches long. And this one next to it here is maybe 6 inches long. So they can actually put out segments up to a foot long without actually being a long form. So just because a short form puts out a longer segment does not make it a long form. There's two very different clones, and there is a little bit of, kind of argument about that in the cacti community on it's possible that TBM, there's only one type and it's just about how you grow it, and that some people think that the long form is just a short form grown in a different environment. This is a seed grown, the DNA. Here's some, and this is a really cool tall seed grown. Not all seed growns are awesome and good. There's one next to it that's just having issues and problems. But this one is gorgeous. It's a SSO2 cross. And then here, this is a, I believe it's Rosie times Sharks. Very cool. And here's a Scop. Really neat, spineless one. Here we've got the Waltz Dragon. So those are some pups that I will cut, and I will sell those 2 pups. And you can see I've done a small puck graft, and it has put out a nice section. I cut a big piece off of it, but I left a big piece, and that's so that I can continue to cut those sections off. And continually cutting those sections allows me to sell those pups, but to still have a nice fat chunk that will continue producing pups. And we're just gonna peek up here and just show, here's a longer TBM short form section, and then here this one also has a bit longer of sections. We can tell these are growing under less light. They're still big old plants, but they get a lot less light, and sometimes that creates a bit of etiolation or stretching due to the low light. And that stretching can create longer sections. I've got some tables over here of just some random stuff. If anyone wants any random combo boxes, I have these that I just need to do something with. They're kind of chilling. They weren't pretty enough to make it on the store kind of thing. Try to really put nice, pretty, high quality cacti on the store, and I also dry all of those and callus them indoors just to make sure that they stay perfect. And the second rate stuff stays on the tables outside. Usually a lot of the second rate stuff is things that I plant for myself. So this is from Nibarius. This is Battleship. And I received a small graft from him, and I cut small pieces off and regrafted these, and these have grown larger than the original graft because I've used the original graft kind of as a mother. So now I will cut this up into pieces and make a whole bunch more Battleship grafts. And it looks like I may be able to cut 1 or 2 pieces and try to root them on their own. Next to it, we've got a big fat TBM cristata. So what's really cool is, see these two grafts down here at the base, the bottom? I grafted all three of those at the exact same time, but I was just kind of messing around with where to set the grafts and if it made a difference. And you can see here, I put these way over on the side and they just did not do as well as this one. Boom, smack dab in the center. Here's some Bruce's Dragon. And we're gonna check out some other Bruce's Dragon because a few people have asked to see some Bruce's Dragon close-ups. So we can see in the beginning it does kind of grow a bit more normal before it grows, you know, skipping spines. And it does terminate. You can see this here is, you know, there's no damage, there's nothing wrong with it, it's perfect, but it just decided to stop growing and push out another pup. And this was originally a small puck graft, and this was a tip graft, and I've cut and removed the tip and 3 new ones have come. And those are about long enough now. These are about 7 inches. So I can now cut those and I can put those on my shop or put them for sale. Sometimes people just hit me up and ask me for things. And we had someone that wanted me to check in on the reverted short form. So this is a section of a short form. And once again, I'm just gonna say, if there's any questions you have about your own cacti, how it's growing, just put them in the comments. If you have any questions about my cacti, put them in the comments. I will answer any questions in the comments or any requests. I'll make a future video and I'll try to put that in there. So this is a short form segment that begin to revert and grow very strange and differently. And I've just been keeping my eye on this one, and I grafted it and it's grown quite a bit. It does look like it is wanting to terminate. So someone asked me to check in on that and show it off, and here it is. I can understand it's probably hard to tell the size to get my hand in there. So we're on a Cacto hybrido rootstock that's about 5 inches thick, and I've got like an 8-inch shaka. So this is like almost 1.5 feet. And so Cacto hybrido is really fat and thick, and it's a profuse bloomer too. There's a flower bud that didn't make it. Oh, and look underneath. Looks like it's gonna try to pop underneath where it didn't flower. How strange. Well, we've got some grafts of this, and I'll keep this as one section. Hopefully it will pop. And we can see what happens with that. Here's the Monster de Cota Cota. And I got that from, I think it's Psilocybum Coop on Reddit from one of my cactus friend groups. And here's a cool one, Esidon Timesina. And there's a lotus land. We got lotus land from Patient Growing. And let's head over here and do a couple more shout outs. Here's a big fat Esidon Timesina. And that originally came from Kokak. Someone else got it from Kokak and I got it from them. And here's some big old fat Bruce's Dragon. Super neat. And CSD. And some people wanted to know about how these tips came out. So I lowered the pH on these and gave them a high nitrogen fertilizer, and the tips are much more healthy. So you can see they greened up, they got their color. So lowering the pH really helped. There was a bit of sun stress is what was really happening to those. And the sun stress was really getting worse because of the pH in the soil was really high and alkaline. This is a cool one. This is clone C. So there's a lot of different TBMs just because TBM does stand for Trichocereus bridgesii monstrous. So any monstrous version of a bridgesii would kind of be considered a Trichocereus bridgesii monstrous. This is clone C. We can see it's weird and monstrous. Grisha. And I received that as glorp, but it just doesn't glow like glorp, so it's different. And here's one of my favorite. I just love the look of this. It's Tig times Yowie. Now I haven't experienced how spicy this is, so that's the next thing I want to try that out, but it's really just a pretty blue. Grows great on a graft. We can see this is one big fat grafted piece. This whole aisle is grafted. Tig times Yowie. I do have this one in my shop right now. And someone had asked, did the graft that I did on video make it? So here's the graft that I did on video. I do a lot of grafts indoor, but I also do them out here in the garden. And so this graft right here in front of us is the one that I did on a recent how to graft cactus video. And you can check that out if you want to learn a quick, easy how to graft. It was just a real simple how to graft video. And I put this on as a short, small tip. It was probably only this big. And it's grown great. So we've gotten this much. You can see the date of whenever I did it. This video that I'm filming right now, I am posting today. So today is Sunday and I'm posting this today. And the video of me grafting this, I had posted it that day. So I try to only post fresh videos. Here's Fred. A lot of people just don't like Fred. I think it was at one point named TBM 2.0, but I think it's recently found that it's a Mammillaria boscana monstrous. And so here's a cool graft off of that reverted short form. So you can see it's got an active growing tip, which I'm stoked on. It's got that weird lumpy growth. The spines are just growing a bit different. I'd love to see this just grow and completely be a Bruce's dragon and be like, whoa, the spines are different and they've changed and it just totally looks like a Bruce's dragon. That would be really funny. And this is Scenic. And the Lotus Land seems to grow with a bit more problems than the Scenic for me. So that's kind of an interesting side note. The Lotus Land seems to get more humidity blisters, people call them. And the Scenic gets a little bit less, but they really grow extremely similar. Here's some grafted TBM. And here's a cool spot that I want to show off. This is a new pathway I'm working on. So all the pathways that we're walking through, I'll take a look at them. You can see I'm on a staircase here, and this pathway is going through my orchard. These are macadamia nut trees and citrus trees, and the whole thing was an entire slope. And what I've done to create these level walkways that everything is growing on is I've pruned and cut tree branches and laid down tree branches, and then on top of the tree branches I put a lot of weeds and things that I pull, and then on top of that I put leaves. So we're looking at one of the last sections before dirt. So after this whole area will receive dirt, and then I'll have this huge flat level area, and I can begin planting cacti. And what happens is all of this breaks down. Some people have heard of hugel culture, and that just creates really rich ground for everything to grow in. So here we're looking at the backside, and we can see this is all a bunch of stuff that I've layered up and put dirt on top of that. And so the walkways that we were walking on and checking out up there, that's what each one is kind of built on. So my entire property is sloped. Like we can see this hill, this is all a steep hillside with the staircase. And then to create each flat level section, I've created these terraces. And so that's what's going on here. And then you can see this huge pencil cactus. It's just thriving because it's like it basically has a compost pile sitting on top of its rootstock area. So this area that we're looking at here is maybe 8 to 10 feet higher than it should be. Like we'll get a look over the edge here. And so this is what the native terrain of my property looks like. We can see some nolinas and yuccas, lemon berries. This is a toyon here, and a laurel, sumac. So that's just kind of how I build these level areas that we're walking through. And we're gonna check out some El Serpentin, and that came from Ron. Ron's an older gentleman that lives near me. He's like an hour away. I'm sorry. He's like a few miles away. And I love going over and checking out all his cacti. We're cacti buddies, and we talk about them and stuff. And he has this neat stand on his property, and it looks like it's freaking made of Legos, because his whole stand is in ground and it's totally square. And it's just really neat to see it, the difference of how these grow grafted, where they can get this regular growth compared to how they grow when they grow in ground. So in ground, it grows a lot like a TBM. You can see this has the, terminated, which doesn't mean anything bad or anything damage happened to it. It just naturally ends its growth and then begins a new pup. So this is just a total healthy piece that has beginned and started a new pup. And it's a total Trichocereus bridgesii monstrous. And that's just kind of the growth that it goes for. This piece here may stop growing, and it gets a lot of forewinds naturally and a lot of curve to it on its own. And it just grows like this without any influence. But it's neat when grafted. This was a funky, weird piece that it can grow regular. And what I like about that is that it gets some speed. Sorry. But yeah, having some speed to its growth is great, because normally when grown in ground, you can see this one here, these pieces get this weird top tip that stops growth and terminates. And that slows things down. This is a real slow grower on its own. So it's really neat to have it get this quick, fast growth when grafted and still be kind of strange and weird. And so these are all ones that I will cut now, and I'll be sharing those if people hit me up on the DM or check out the shop. A lot of the regular ones I'll be cutting and grafting, because I've just found that they do really well and grow super fast when grafted. Those regular pieces. And the monstrous ones, will continue to grow monstrous and weird. And they put out these rib shifts and strange, funky, like this one here. Looks like a hand. Such a cool one. I love that. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and just let me know if there's anything that you want to see for the next one, and I'll try to show a bit more of it. I tried to go over Bruce's dragon and showing off some long form segments, and we'll just take one more look at, here's a grafted short form, and we can see this is about 10 inches. So here's a short form that's about 10 inches. It is not a long form just because it's growing longer. It is still most definitely a short form, and the pups that it puts out off of these spines will grow shorter. And all of those top tips that we saw cut, here are some of those. These are some of those tips. So these tips will just continue pupping, and you can see there, I just had a couple of spines on here, just a few areoles, and that's all that was necessary for them to pup, and then they're putting out nice fat bunches. And this one's kind of got a stacking appeal to it. Oh, and while we're here, someone asked about grafting monkey tails. Yes, you can graft monkey tails, and these are some grafted monkey tails in the background here. See you next time. Enjoy your day. Hope everyone has a kick-ass week ahead. Cheers.